Mary Trunks, don't think so? I'm filling out everything. I can't claim my son yet. Oh, because it's last year. Dang, your son... So your son should have come out earlier. He's a little too late. For tax purposes. Get back in there. So yeah, this coating that I have here on these armor plates is pretty solid, and you don't really notice the brushstrokes or the sort of gray tone underneath. Maybe if you look really closely you can kind of see it, but I'm mostly okay with that to this level. I think I'll get all these other pieces to at least this level, because we're going to be doing a lot of wearing and weathering and stuff on top of that, so it doesn't really need to be that solid after all. I just want to get to a point where it's decently solid to work on top of. Get back in there reminds me of one of those short stories by Junji Ito. When is that Uzumaki anime gonna come out? Or did it come out already? I know there was supposed to be one. Get back in there. And this is, so these are actually the shoulder pads. They go around the arms. And one I'm painting sort of the rest of the armor color, but the other one I'll be painting red, just as like an accent. Oh, I noticed that I should probably paint these flaps. Paint these flaps here. There's this YouTube video out there where Junji Ito rates what's the term, like cryptids and meme monsters from memes and stuff. It's kind of interesting just to get his insight on horror, right? Because obviously he's a master at horror, but what would you think of some of the memes and horror characters that have come out lately? So, yeah, you should look that up. It's pretty interesting. I think he liked Slender Man. That's a pretty good one. And yeah, I think he was mostly nice about all of them. He pretty much thought they were all pretty interesting. At least there was something interesting about them. That reminds me, even in My Dress Up Darling, there are times where they use a Junji Ito-esque art style to sort of illustrate mania or some kind of like psychosis. Like even in the first episode, she's going on about that anime that she likes, or the visual novel. And they zoom into her face, and they do the whole Junji Ito like shading around the eyes as kind of like this. It's kind of creepy looking kind of thing. And yeah, I love it. That's pretty awesome. His art style has become sort of like a visual shorthand to display to display a certain kind of mood. Bacon, don't think they've announced anything for the anime? Just waiting for the release date. Yeah, because I know we saw like an animation preview for it, and it looked pretty good. It looked promising. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just an animation teaser, but it looked pretty good. And then there was there's actually a couple of, at least one other anime that I'm looking forward to coming out soon at some point. Well, is Spy X Cross Family out? I'm not actually sure if that's out, but I'm looking forward to that one. I think that'll be good. And Chainsaw Man. I think Chainsaw Man's gonna be pretty good. It seems to me like Chainsaw Man might evoke the same kind of fan base and and get the same kind of fans that were really into, what is it called, Dodo Hero or something like that. I forget what it's called, but the one with Kaiman, the big lizard man guy, or even something like Mob 100, Mob Psycho 100. I feel like Chainsaw Man might kind of get the same audience. Spy X Family, yeah, that one's looking good. I like the manga. I've read, I don't know if I'm caught up, but I like the manga. It's pretty good. If I'm not mistaken, I think Spy X or Cross Family comes from Shonen Jump's digital service, and it was so popular that they ended up putting it onto their normal Shonen Jump magazine now. I think, maybe, perhaps. Dorohedoro, something like that. It's like it's like, you know what I'm talking about though, right? It's like the one with the lizard man guy. I've read a decent amount of the manga, but I didn't finish it, and the manga, sorry, the anime itself, I've only watched like maybe one episode, but it's cool. It's cool. I just I just never got around to watching it all. It happens. Yeah, so I think we're gonna have to let this dry a bit more. Just takes a little more time for this stuff to dry because I added that stuff that slows down the drying time. Hopefully, if I have time today, I'll probably play some Elden Ring. It's been a while. Well, wait, no, I did play some Elden Ring yesterday, but I didn't make too much progress. Just kind of generally exploring. Like I finished up Raya Lucaria, and I'm just kind of exploring the general area now, because I'm sure that there's lots of stuff that I missed in even the outside area, like in the open world around there. Excuse me, I'm just gonna look around there and see if I missed anything. Okay. Yeah, you can see how patchy it is. Like it doesn't look even, but it does. It actually kind of looks okay like that in some respects, and I will be adding a lot of wearing and tearing and weathering, so like kind of being patchy would kind of help to sell this idea that it's a worn out machine, but I will put a few more coats on it. There's a painter and builder that I'm a big fan of. I don't know if you've seen his channel, Bacon. It's called Paint on Plastic on YouTube. Paint on Plastic by Lincoln Wright, Lincon Wright, Wright, Lincoln Wright. And I mentioned him before, but he's mostly known for painting Maschenkrieger or MAK models. Now that's sort of like this entirely different line of Japanese plastic robot kits, mecha kits, where if you could call Gundam being very sleek and popular in a commercial sense, MAK is more dingy, more dirty, more raw and weird, and not even very pleasing in some regards. Like there's something kind of like, what's the word? Like it doesn't look very aesthetically pleasing from like a slick and conventional sense. But nevertheless, these models are still quite popular. And this guy, Lincoln Wright, he lived in Japan for, I want to say, like 18 years, working for magazines as well as the producers of the models themselves, and under Yokoyama, the guy that designs MAK, making the models, painting them professionally. So he's a professional builder, and he ended up going back to Australia, where he continues his practice. Now, the main reason that I bring him up is because his models, the models that he paints are very much in this style. I'm actually not sure if he's painted specifically this brand of model, but he's painted models very much in this general style in terms of the build here. But his painting style, he would take something like this, like what I've done here, which is very basic, and he would deliberately paint in a very patchy, kind of chaotic, not smooth way. He actually popularized hand painting. He does use airbrushes, but he popularized hand painting, you know, 15, 20 years ago, when airbrushing was very much a super popular way of doing things in Japan. But he brought in more hand painting techniques, and then a lot of the Japanese builders then would go on to sort of adopt some of his techniques. But yeah, he would, like, you know, this streaky pattern that I have here. He would, I've watched a lot of his videos, and he would be like, yeah, look at that. Like, I really love that streaky look. And now we're going to just kind of accentuate the streaks and make it look even better. Like, he loves that kind of organic and kind of chaotic result that you get from hand painting, whereas, like, airbrushing is at least at a certain point, at a certain level, like, airbrushing is more about getting very clean and flat surfaces, especially with regards to painting MAK, and he has painted Gundam and even Warhammer and Orcs and 40k Orcs and stuff like that, and Tau. You can get a certain kind of result doing it by hand, and it's really interesting. I enjoy watching his channel. Bacon, if I remember correctly, Spy X Family is airing this season, but you're not sure about Chainsaw Man. Okay, I know that Chainsaw Man is actually finished. I think it is at least the first like iteration of it, and if it were to come back, it would be kind of like a new cast of characters, maybe? I don't know. So yeah, I can tell that the paint is still drying here, so I'm just gonna wait. And I can actually move on to some other things if we have, if I find that, like, I've come to a natural stopping point with this. I can move on to something else. Okay, let's get this here. This paint is actually kind of, it's kind of a bit of a trip, this paint. So I've never used this before. This is from Vallejo. Vallejo paint is a very popular line of miniature paints. You know, for the Warhammer hobby or any general miniature painting hobby. It's pretty popular, and yeah, people use it for airbrushing as well. I've never used it myself, but I find it kind of interesting because when I'm applying it, I feel like I'm painting something that just looks white, and yet when I look at it again, when it dries, it's weird. Like, I feel like the color kind of starts to pop out and become more pronounced after it dries, and you can see better that it's a more indigo green, like a light bluish green color. But that's only after it dries. It's very weird. This little flap here should be something that's attached to the model, but somehow I'm painting it separately. It just worked out that way. Okay, so let's check this thing here. I think I can do... I'm sort of holding it up against the light and seeing if it's kind of shiny. If it's shiny, that means it's not dry yet. But I think I can do at least one more coat on a couple of sides of it. Bacon, is that a characteristic of the brand or the color? I am not sure, because this color, I've never really bought this color before. This is Verdigris, and I've never bought this brand before, Vallejo. So I don't know. Actually, I'm pretty sure Vallejo make a line of paints intended for airbrushing mechs. I'm pretty sure it's just called Mecha Color. I have no idea how popular it is, but I did see it at Hobby Center, which is one of the hobby stores that I've visited late as of late. Oh, you know what I can do? Okay, so let's apply one more coat of this Verdigris. It might be a property of this particular color, because I think it's kind of intended to be a bit of a weathering color, actually, more so than a color that you're going to apply as a base coat. I think it's kind of intended to act as a bit of like the I can't get the word out. The oxidization that occurs on brass and other certain kinds of metal. You know, after a while, brass or copper kind of get this kind of like teal patina or something like that. I think that might be what this color is intended to be emulating. And maybe part of the properties, how they formulated it, was to somehow become more pronounced once it's dry. I don't know. All right, so let's try and get this on here. Yeah, I did some priming, and I did some priming last night and the other night. I did some building earlier this week, mostly finishing up a certain model, finishing up the vending machine, although I am tempted to do some weathering on that as well, but we can kind of go into that a little later. And there's a bit of a arts and crafts project that I kind of want to do, at least talk about on stream, and then I'll attempt to make what I want to make, but I don't know exactly how I'm going to be doing that. How much did you end up completing for your model there last night, Bacon? Did you end up getting much work done? And what's the final verdict on Gun Primer? Gun Primer is a go. Gun Primer comes with Bacon's seal of quality. It's like the old Nintendo seal of approval. Okay, let's change this. Oh, you're working on the fingers as we speak. Fingers are. Is that the kind of model where each finger is like is articulated? Because I remember that was a big thing for models at a certain point. And I do have one or two models that had articulated fingers, but to be honest, I'm not sure if I really like that, just because it ends up being like really easy to lose the finger parts eventually. Each finger can move, okay. Bacon, I finished most of the head and most of the arm, and working on the fingers. A little torn on the glass file. Is it because it's the whole your analogy of like driving stick? Is that why? You're not more closely interacting with the model. Is that what you said? You wanna feel the sensitive nubs? I think in terms of the speed though, it's kind of like it's kind of like awesome in that sense. Like, can't really beat that. Just how fast you're gonna be able to. Well, okay, I guess that maybe is your point. It's like it's kind of like, yes, it's faster, but at the same time, you know, you're not doing this hobby because you want to do things quickly. It's because you want to take your time and do things well, and yeah, take your time with the models, right? So I think maybe that's kind of what you're getting at. If I can put words in your mouth. Bacon, there's that, but it doesn't hide the nub marks as good as using sandpaper. Oh, really? But that was the whole point, wasn't it? So it doesn't do what it can do. It can do it up to a certain extent, and it can do it very quickly, but it just doesn't do it as well as the other methods. Okay. Well, that kind of complicates things, right? Because yeah, I actually thought that it did it just as well and faster, but now I'm understanding that it does maybe not as well, just slightly even. But the speed aspect is definitely a thing. It's so funny though that this is mostly something that has come from like the nail art world, and it's sort of made its way into the miniature or the scale modeling hobby. I find that very interesting. I didn't know that at first until you mentioned it, but it's like they didn't get it out of nowhere. They didn't come up with this idea out of nowhere. I definitely felt like it came from some other industry, but I just didn't know where, right? I was thinking maybe it came from like the automotive car detailing world, or maybe like electronics or something. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just sort of checking the model in the light, seeing what's reflective. I mean, I think one of my strong points as a human being is that I'm a very patient person. So I don't mind doing things the long way, the slow way. And I mean, just look what I'm doing now, right? I'm just sort of applying several layers of the same color over and over again. And I have to factor in drying times. I guess I could speed up the drying time if I had a dryer, like a hair dryer. That could work, but again, that's fine. I'm fine. Bacon, I guess I wouldn't know until I top coat it. It works great with certain colors, but with the red I'm dealing with right now, it's definitely not as good. Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that as well. Again, that's just something that I would have assumed all colors would be equal under the light of the God Eye. No, no, it's not the God Hand. It's the glass file. Well, I think that's about as much as I can do there. Check this. I just noticed I have to get the center of this ring here. Let's kind of get that. It's crazy that it's already April. Yeah, so yesterday I was thinking, holy crap, it's almost April, or well, it was like really late, so it may have actually been April already at night, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's already April. And this model that I'm painting now is still unpainted. I had all these plans of finishing it in January, and then it turned into February, and now it's we're in April. So I was like, wow, I better get cracking on this before I work on anything else. And you know, it's a small model, so I'm not anticipating that it's gonna take too long. The only thing that's gonna take long is the painting, which is what I'm doing now. And I'm planning on trying out some new techniques with painting, so that's another thing that could take some time, is just trying out some new painting techniques. And yeah, there's some other things I'd like to do, and I'm kind of like, oh boy, I need to get cracking on all this stuff that I have planned if I actually want to see it and do it and get it finished, because it's already April. Holy smokes. So yeah, I guess we're gonna have to turn on the boosters and start trying to get stuff done, which is good. I never anticipated that I was gonna have a backlog of miniatures to make and build too. It's not that I have a big one. With the models that I have here on hand, I have 2, so I have like a backlog of 2. But if you factor in things that are in storage, that gets bumped up by like maybe another 2. I'm not actually 100% sure what I have in storage. I have an idea of what I have in storage that's incomplete as far as Gundam models go, but but we will get to that when we get to that. Bacon, my Twitter feed is completely messed up last night since it's April Fool's in Japan. They seem to love that day. Yeah, and some Japanese companies like Arika, they basically use, and to some extent Platinum, they basically use April Fool's Day as kind of like a market research day to try and gauge interest in a certain thing, and then suddenly it becomes real, right? Like Arika, I think that's the name of the company. They did what's it called? Fighting Layer EX, the game with Skullomania. That was an April Fool's joke, right? And it was like, hold on, that actually looks good. We want that. So then they turned around and were like, okay, so yeah, that's a thing. But you know what? That's kind of like the official story. But to be honest, like I said, they more or less use it as market research, right? So they fully intend for this thing to be a viable commercial product, but they use April Fool's Day as kind of like an option select, right? They use it as a way of saying, haha, hey guys, here's this funny thing. It's funny and weird, right? Like, isn't it weird? And then everyone says, we like that. That's a thing that we actually want. And then they go, you know, a few days later or a week later, they'll say, that thing you thought was funny and you actually wanted, but it wasn't real. Guess what? It's actually real and it's happening. So here's the Kickstarter or whatever, right? That's sort of like a trick that I see time and time again. And on the other hand, if it's something that people hate, then they can just brush it aside and be like, oh, you thought that was dumb and you didn't like it? Well, it was April Fool's, so haha, we got you. You know? Even Yakuza 7, when they showed the turn-based system. So Yakuza 7 was already announced as a game that was going to come out, and it was starring Ichiban, right? But everyone had assumed that it was just going to be another brawler game like all other Yakuza games. April Fool's comes around, and they show that it's a turn-based system. And again, it was like, pretty funny, right, guys? Turn-based? Isn't that funny and weird? And as you might expect, everyone was like, actually, not everyone, because there were some dissenters, and even now there's definitely people that don't like the direction that Yakuza 7 took. But by and large, most people thought it was cool. And then, yeah, they were like, yeah, actually, that's a thing. That's actually real now. That's how it's going to be. Bacon, the best one I got was from the Robot Wars dev. They actually came out and said that they won't do any April Fool's joke because too many people fall for it. That's good. And then did they come out with one anyways? And then people fell for it? Because that would be pretty good. Psych! Psych! Actually not sure what I should paint the interior of this. I'm guessing some kind of like a brownish, dark brownish red. I don't think I should paint it the exterior color. That doesn't make sense to me. Okay. I think we're just gonna let this dry now. Let's let it dry. There's at least 2 more layers that need to be applied to that, but we'll let that go because we can come back to that later, and we don't need to just sit around and do nothing while it dries. We can move on to something else. And again, we want to get to this point. It might be hard to actually tell on screen what the difference is, but trust me, there's a bit of a difference in terms of the opacity and how solid the color is.